morning, everybody. Welcome back. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do another Prepping 101 video, building on what we've already talked about previously. What I want to talk about now is immediate triggers, and like the immediate triggers where you just need to run. You just need to understand that you may need to run. So in a previous video, I talked about I have talked about run, hide, fight in a previous video, but that's not what I'm referring to now. What I'm referring to now is in a previous video, I've talked about hibernate, relocate, evacuate. So in crisis management, there's some, contingency planning, there's something called hibernate, relocate, evacuate, which it's well known, it's well taught, it's, everybody understands it. Basically, if you're operating in a hostile environment and bad things start to happen, your first port of call is to go home, right? Hibernate. You stay in the house, you hide, you try and wait it out. If things continue to get bad, you then relocate to a safe location. If things continue to get, escalate, then you evacuate the country. Now, I did a lot of this work in Syria when I used to work in. I was a security manager in Syria, and that is literally what you would do. If the rebels or whoever, ISIS, whatever you want to call them, started to get close, and there was a likelihood that our town may get overrun, then the first thing we would do is say, right, all staff, come back to the villa. We are hibernating. We're going to stay in here. We're not going to leave. Where I can physically make sure everybody's safe, right? If the rebels then are right outside the town and it looks like they're going to make entry any day, then it's time to relocate or whatever your triggers are. What I want to talk about now is because the algorithm's not wrong. I may have not communicated it well enough that you don't have to go through that. You don't have to go through that process, right? Like when you're in your car, right? You're approaching a junction and you're in fifth gear and you need to be in first gear. You don't go 4, 3, 2, 1. You just go, right, I'm in fifth. I'm slowing down. I'm going to put it into first, right? You can miss the middle stages out or the first stages. So it may be the case that a lot of millionaires already in the United Kingdom, they've already evacuated, right? 45.2 millionaires every day last year left the United Kingdom. So what I'm going to talk about now is in this live stream, we're going to go through immediate triggers. So I'm going to give you guys 3 of my immediate triggers. And there's the first one, which is the most important. That will be, if this happens, just get out of cities, because it will all go south very quickly. So let's set the scenario, because I've said this quite a few times, and we've talked about civil war and civil conflict. I'm pretty convinced that we are not going to have a civil war. A civil war would be a blue team versus red team. We are not going to have anything as clean cut as that. So just imagine the scenario, right? Because we are there now, right? Excuse me. My cough's still not left me. We're at that point now where anyone right now, as what we're on 13th, Friday the 13th, unlucky for some, Friday the 13th of February, right now, any one of these triggers, literally any one of these triggers would set off a civil war. So I'll come on to them in a second, but people need to forget what they think a civil war looks like. There's going to be no redcoats charging across the fields. There's going to be no cavalry chargers or grand set pieces with flags and drums. There's going to be none of these grand battles or such. This is going to be a lot more there's going to be a lot more violence, but it's going to be split up between religious, ethnic, social, and geographic lines. And it's very difficult to understand what it's exactly going to look like. But I say this all the time. In a civil war, normally you have a rebel force opposing the government force. We're not going to have that here. We're going to have a government force trying to stay in power, pretending that they've got some power. You're going to have certain police forces. West Midlands Police. What? I think there's an echo here. You're going to have certain police forces that have been infiltrated, certain police forces that have not. You're going to have asymmetric warfare. You're going to have grey warfare. You're going to have uniform. You're going to have ununiformed. It's just going to be crackers. It's going to be us versus them, allied with them and them. But as soon as they've been defeated, they're going to turn on us. But, you know, it's just going to be crazy. It's going to be literally a free-for-all. But there's a chance, and the chatter is getting louder. More and more incidents, more gangs on the media. The Overton windows now getting wider. The polls are grim. A third of us reckon that it's possible in the next 5 years. And I did a live stream on that. 1/3 of people believe that civil war is possible in the next 5 years. It will be a slow, grinding, ugly battle. And it will look like more than the trouble. It will look more like the Troubles in Northern Ireland, but on absolute steroids. Not contained to several counties, this will be spread all over the country. Low intensity battles, high intensity battles, asymmetric, sporadic, interpersonal, interfamilies, crime versus idealistic. Literally, just imagine a free-for-all with no police. That's pretty much what you're going to imagine. So there's going to be no front lines, just neighborhoods. One side will be barricading themselves in, whether it's Birmingham or Bradford, turning estates into fortified zones because they feel under siege. I mean, we already saw this, right? This has already happened. So if you guys think what I'm talking about is far-fetched, this has already happened in the UK. There was, where was it? Was it Har Hills in Leeds? You guys can remember that, right? I think it was last year, or maybe the year before. In Har Hills in Leeds, they were rioting so bad the police couldn't get in. They barricaded that community off. The police couldn't get in. You're going to have rural towns, small town folk, city folk. They're all going to be at loggerheads against each other. People will be organising in sheds or pubs if they're allowed in them, viewing Westminster as a captured, already illegitimate foreign power. And in the middle, you're going to have whatever's left of the state, right? The police will be stretched thin. The army, we've already said that we don't have enough troops to deploy to Ukraine. So what's going to happen? Literally, what's going to happen? I don't know if you guys were on the live stream earlier. I was talking about 7,500 troops deployed to Ukraine doesn't actually mean 7,500. Lowest numbers that can be, lowest numbers, and this is not a sustainable number, is 22,500. Because you have to, and I did this on a live stream earlier. But what I'm getting at here is, a deployment to Ukraine will suck up a lot of military manpower. And let's not forget, we only have 19,000 infantry. And they are the ones that are frontline trained. So the police will be stretched thin. The army will be non-existent. Emergency services will be more or less non-existent. Maybe now's the time to learn some, basic first aid. If the army do get called in, this is how it works, guys, all right? There's going to be no scenarios in the United Kingdom where you've got, military marching down the streets with riot shields. No way, Bob, that ain't going to happen. If the military do get called in, they are going to be put in places to protect vital infrastructure, airports, seaports, nuclear power plants, substations, vital infrastructure. trying to hold the center while everyone else just picks sides and tries to survive. Reservoirs, that'd be another one as well. So, you know, when people think about a military deployment and that the military will be able to bolster the police, yes, they will, but they're not going to be on the streets with riot shields and batons. The military will be deployed at static locations to, excuse me, to protect those vital, vital locations, right? And the real damage is the real cost of this. Yes, there's going to be violent clashes and people are going to get hurt. There's going to be people that are going, you know, going to the candy shop. But there's going to be a huge amount of sabotage, huge amount of sabotage. You know, I mean, it's already happening, right? Think about it. A few determined men with, where's my drill? Oh, it's in there. A few determined men with some bolt croppers, a DeWalt drill, and a still saw. Think how much damage they can do. Substations, water plants. Half the city goes dark for maybe days, weeks. We've already seen this in Ukraine. Like in Ukraine right now, they get electricity for 3 hours a day in Kiev. Can you imagine water treatment plants? A water treatment plant. We already know that people can make rice in the United Kingdom. Fiber optic cables, rail networks. All these things are impossible to protect, right? One night the lights go out in Manchester, the next night it's Leeds. Supermarkets are empty, fuel runs, no diesel, panic spreads quicker than the police and the emergency authorities can deploy. We're at the tipping point already, guys. We've already reached saturation point in the United Kingdom. That's already here. Then you can look at the targeted stuff. You know, targeted attacks on people, because what happens is, and I've been warning about this, what happens is when people start to realize that voting or whatever has no effect, and I'm saying this from experience because this happened in Northern Ireland, they will go after decision makers. So maybe you're, I don't know, police chief. That's an easy one, right? Police chief. Police chief is deploying manpower there, right? Okay. So the police chief then gets targeted. You don't even need to target a police chief well. All you need to do is take pictures of his kids at school and go and meet him in a cafe. Hello, mate. Are they your kids? Yeah, right. You work for me now. These things happen. These things happen. Let's not pretend that we don't already have people in the United Kingdom who do not, you know, identify as British. Local councillors, maybe local councillors, right? They don't even know what they're doing. Somebody just wants access to a certain set of keys. Okay. It's not worth any trouble for that councillor, but that set of keys gives them access to something else. That gives them access to something else. And before you know it, everything's being infiltrated. You know, we're not talking about, you know, when we talk about targeted attacks on individuals, we're not always talking about assassinations, and you know, a lot of the time they're pointless. It's better to turn that person, right, and to have them work for you rather than not have them at all. So we're not talking about prime ministers, we're not talking about high-ranking politicians. I'm talking about local councillors, local community leaders who are seen as collaborators, who are seen as the other side. So then you have a scenario where you can only get in that power, in that position of power, if your gang supports you. So now we've got more segregation. And I would say this is already happening in places like Birmingham. Remember, we've got convicted terrorists standing for election in Birmingham. Fire bombs, petrol bombs, knives, bricks, bats. Let's not pretend that we don't have weapons in the United Kingdom. We just don't have firearms in the United Kingdom. So right, let me jump onto these guys because I'm conscious I've just been waffling. Let me jump onto my triggers. All right, so I've got 3 triggers here, and if these 3 trigger one of these 3, I think these are the most likely things, right? These are the most likely. I did touch on them last night, but I want to do a standalone live stream on these and dive a little bit deeper into them. The first one, get out. If this happens, literally, pack your bags, get out the city. We're already at that tinderbox now. We're at that tinderbox stage now. We're not even at the tinderbox. We are at the tinderbox. You know, like when you see these. I watch them. I'm guilty, guys. I'm guilty. You know these videos where guys are like, they use that ferro rod. You know, I might have one somewhere. They use a ferro rod to start a fire. Just first of all, guys, right? Those things are absurd. Don't use them. Just buy a lighter. A lighter is so much easier. And they're like, you get like 6 lighters now for £1. So, you know when you see the guy do it, that's where we are right now. We are a tinderbox, and we've got that's doing it all the time. Every time you see the gang on the news, or gangs, or a stabby at a school, that's somebody doing that on the tinderbox, right? That is literally somebody doing that on the tinderbox. So, previously we've talked about hibernate, relocate, evacuate. What I'm saying now is there may be a stage where you just forget hibernate, you just relocate straight away. Equally, you may already want to evacuate the United Kingdom. If you can, I would say get out of the United Kingdom right now. So, first of all, let's talk about the first trigger. And this is going to be like the worst one, guys, okay? This is absolutely going to be the worst one, guys, okay? This is going to be the worst one. If this happens, just go. Literally, you don't want to be anywhere near a city if this happens. So, clear as day, if there is another tragedy like what happened in Southport, I genuinely, guys, I can't even, in my head, when I start to think about that, I have to stop myself thinking, right? Doesn't have to be girls at a dance class. We have already seen in the United Kingdom that the UK's biggest terror attack involving firearms and explosives has been thwarted. I think this was a 7-year undercover operation. I think it was 7 years. That sounds a lot. It might be less. Basically, there was an undercover operation, and there were men, Muslim men. They are. It's well documented. They were planning to do a mass attack, and they got caught trying to buy firearms, AK-47s. You guys have seen the video. So we know that these things are being planned in the United Kingdom right now. We know that there is the apparatus for that to happen in the United Kingdom. We know that. So if that's my first trigger, the mass event, the mass shooty, stabby, rammy, and especially if it involves children. And again, let's not pretend that these things are not being planned. If that happens, and you've probably got 12 hours to get out of the city. Because what will happen is it will happen, right? It will happen. Then there'll be a period of time where not everybody knows it's happened, right? Before it gets put on the news, before the media starts talking about it, before the facts come out, you pretty much get everything on X within like a couple of minutes. You just need to be able to sort through the wheat and the chaff, right? So that's the first thing. And again, guys, I keep having to say this. Let's not pretend that sat in hotels, sat in houses, maybe even talking about it in mosques, maybe even who knows where else they're talking about it. Maybe they're talking about it in churches or synagogues. Who knows? Who knows who's planning these sorts of things? Equally, this could be an attack on a mosque. It could be, it could be some white nationals who've had enough and they plan an attack on a mosque. Imagine if that was a mosque in Birmingham. Imagine what the local population would be like in Birmingham. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the carnage that would happen? In those circumstances, you need to get out the cities. You need to get out the built-up areas because they're going to be the places that are going to get hit worse. Get to your secondary location. So the second my second trigger is the endless channel crossings. Now, I don't know what to call this. I don't know I can't really give this a name. But we literally have day by day, pretty much every day, hundreds, maybe not thousands, coming to the United Kingdom on small boats. Headlines are screaming invasion, colonization. Now, this could be an incident at a port. It could be an incident, I don't know where, involving migrants, right? At a hotel. We've already seen a lot of these hotels. There's been a lot of people arrested at hotels, right? That's the reality. And whether this is real or not, if these things are coming, I think they are real. The reason I'm saying that, and again, I don't know. I was watching a document. It was GB News this morning, actually. I was watching GB News, and there was this guy, and they were talking. He had, if anybody's watched GB News this morning, I'm talking about the guy. He had a nose ring in. There was a man, and he had a nose ring in. And anyway, and he was arguing that in Calais and Dunkirk, it's actually crime hasn't gone up in Calais and Dunkirk because of migrants, because of these migrant camps. That's what he was arguing. Now, I don't know where he's getting his statistics from. I think he's wrong, but that's why I said that. We've got the what's the one in Crowborough? In Crowborough. Lots of migrants going to Crowborough. How long before a crime happens in Crowborough? How long before a crime happens and people have had enough? Could be a hotel like in Epping. Especially as we move on to the summer. Because don't forget, in fact, let me ask you this question, guys, all right? Do you think the migration problem into the United Kingdom, and it is a problem, our own Home Secretary, Shabina Mahmood, said it was a problem. Do you think the Home Secretary... do you think the migration problem we're predicting the future now, from this summer, when there was the protests at the Bell Hotel in Epping, do you think the problem will have got better or worse by the time next summer comes, in that 12-month period? Do you think it'll have got better or worse? I would say it's got worse because boats come every day. Ergo, the situation is getting worse, right? Excuse me. So we've also got this report by the grooming gangs report by Rupert Lowe. I can only speculate what's going to come out on that, but some of the things that have come out on that are you can't even read it. You cannot even read the stuff that comes out on this. And people are getting angrier and angrier and angrier. So that's my second trigger or flashpoint, where I think these are going to go. Well, once it goes, get out of it. It may be the case that you don't even hibernate anymore. Again, I get it. Some people may not have a backup location, but it may be the case that you just want to get out of that town, get out of that city. If you live in Birmingham, you can listen. We already know that Birmingham police has been... Well, yesterday, right, I gave you guys the definition of colonization, right? Colonization, and this is the definition in the dictionary, the act or process of settling among and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area. It's very difficult to argue that Birmingham's not being colonized. Very difficult. Like, I don't know where the argument is that Birmingham has not already been colonized. If we consider that West Midlands Police made up evidence and presented it to Parliament as true, that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were a threat when they actually weren't a threat. It was the local communities that were going to arm themselves. You kind of can't really argue that with that definition of colonization. You can't really argue with that. There is no argument there. So that's my second one, guys. Okay, so my first trigger, and if this happens, get out of the cities. You've probably got 6 to 12 hours. Get out of the city. In fact, get out as quickly as possible. Don't wait 6 or 12 hours. Literally, just get out. Second trigger, it's going to be around migrants. It's going to be around migrant hotels. There's going to be another crime. There's going to be something. Something's going to happen in a hotel, and it's going to go. And what happens is, there will be an epicenter, but when people feel like Tinder and that spark's going, it just goes. This happens all over the world. My third trigger is the one that it's like that slow grind, like in Iran. It's the slow grind that will eventually tip everyone over the top. So, touching on migration again, right? If here in the United Kingdom, mass migration was working, right? And everybody was feeling richer, and everybody was happy, and everybody was doing well, nobody would be upset. Nobody would be upset. If you didn't turn the news on, right, and see gangs arrested for a crime against a young girl, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? And if you couldn't do that pattern recognition, and that wasn't happening, and everybody was richer, and everybody had like Ferraris and shit, not you, I don't know, F-150s, everything would be fine. The problem is, everything's not fine. People have got less money. People are worried. People are scared. People can't put food on the table. And all the time, they're paying their taxes to people who are just colonizing them. That's how people feel. And it's very difficult. It's difficult to argue with that. What is the standard of living? What is the standard of living now? Well, a good, excuse me. And I don't know if anyone's done this. I don't know what the answer is, right? How much, right? Let's just say, I'm just trying to think of something like something that's standard. I'm going to refer this back to gold. How much in the 90s, right? In 1990 in the United Kingdom, how much was an ounce of gold, right? How much was rent for a two-bedroom apartment on average in the UK? I should probably do this as a short video, right? And what is that as a percentage of the price of gold? Then now, if you upscale that and do it as the same as a percentage, what do you get? And I would speculate, and I've not done this maths, Raven maths, I would speculate that we are a lot poorer now. Things cost more relatively. It doesn't matter how much things cost if you're getting paid more, right? If inflation goes up and your wages are going up, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter. The problem is, I think inflation's going up, but your wages are stagnating, but people are just lying. So the third trigger, and this is the slow burner that makes everything worse. Everything. It's that economic pain. It's those financial woes. It's the not having enough money to feed your family. Not having enough money to feed your family, but you've still got to pay tax while people are getting fat and bloated. It's literally what brought the French down, right? It's the French Revolution. Excuse me. So they're my three things. They're my three triggers that I think are the, first of all, they're the most likely things to happen. You know, and I think you can jump straight from. You don't need to hibernate. Like if you've got your contingency planning, right, and you've got, right, we're going to hibernate for 3 days and then we're going to evacuate. You don't need to do that. You can literally go straight to relocate. Equally, you may just think in your plan, right, you know what? We live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Birmingham, right in the middle of the city centre. We're not even going to bother hibernating. It's pointless. We're just going to move to. We're just going to go to my mum and dad's, who live in Tamworth. You know, they've got a big house, and we can all go there. Right, ladies and gentlemen, good, fantastic people. Hello, everyone. Let me jump up and get some chat, guys. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I want to keep saying this, right? I want to keep saying this. Let's not be under an illusion that a mass attack cannot happen here in the United Kingdom, okay? Let's just not pretend that can't happen. And I'm talking about a multiple coordinated attack where there are multiple attackers in multiple cities at the same time. Virtually impossible to stop. And if that happens, remember, we spoke about that before. We said, so you know how, you know the 13-year-old boy who can't be named for legal reasons, who went stabby. So the 13-year-old boy, who went stabby, it came out on the news that it took the police 13 minutes to get there from the call, right? What I'm actually saying to you guys is that 13 minutes is a false metric. I'm going to say it took about half an hour. And what I mean by what I'm getting at here is you're going to have to deal with these things initially for a while yourself. Now, using that as an incident, this is what will have happened, right? The incident will have happened. So somebody will have had stabby. Once the stabby is done, somebody's going to phone the police, right? Because you can't phone the police for stabby if stabby's not happened. So after stabby, somebody phones the police, right? You ring. Hello, emergency service. Well, who can I help? Yeah, I need police, please. There's just been a stabbing. All right, then they put you through to the police. You get the operator. Maybe you get an operator. We've heard a lot of times the operators you can't get through. You're on hold for like 7 minutes or something. So maybe you get answers straight away. Maybe you don't. You get the operator. Yes, hello, there's been a stabbing. Right. So first of all, the operator then is trying to get the information because he needs to send the police units to you. I'm assuming this is done by computer or whatever. What is the nature of the crime? Well, it's a stabby. Who's done the stabby? A 13-year-old boy. Right. Okay. 13-year-old boy, stabby. That's 1 times armed response unit, right? 1 times armed response unit. If that phone call goes through, and the phone calls, hello, yeah, shooty, multiple men with long barrel weapons. Yeah, guess what? That's not 1 armed response unit. That is a huge cordon, because now you've got to contain the area. Because what happens then is if the police go in there, right? Let's say your 1 armed response team goes in, and there's an exchange of gunfire. After the exchange of gunfire, you know, some police officers have gone down and the others have had to retreat. Then the bad guys get all the police kit and equipment. Then they've got more guns, right? And you're down an armed response team now. So now you need to call in another arm. So in the initial phases of a mass incident, and you know, I'm going to do mass incident on its own. In the initial phases of a mass incident, you're pretty much going to be on your own, guys. You will absolutely be on your own. The police have to, the police have to cordon that area off, and they have to protect it. So in these situations, ladies and gentlemen, you may just want to evacuate straight away. Rule Britannia is saying reform Yeah, listen, guys. I'm not convinced. Listen, the only right. Listen, I'm not convinced on reform. I'm not convinced on reform. I just we're in a situation, right? We're in a crazy situation. Raven, look at Texas border a couple of days ago. They had 7 Apaches and unknown craft. America's cover story is they shot down a party balloon. Maybe? Well, wasn't the airport shut in Mexico? Wasn't the airport shut in Mexico as well? Maybe this is all connected. I don't know. Okay, not a chance. Mass deportations, guys. Mass deportations are not going to happen. People need to stop thinking that it's fake. Mass deportations are not going to happen. How do I know this? Well, in America, they've stopped mass deportations. In America, they've stopped mass deportations because they just can't do it. It's too difficult. Too many people are going crackers. Too much is causing too much trouble. So it turns out that they can't do mass deportations in the United States. That's with Donald Trump sending a full deployment of ICE, saying, yeah, we're going to send in the military. We are going to do this. So I don't see how that can happen in the United Kingdom. Not a chance. Right, let me jump up, guys, because I'm just conscious I'm only just jumping onto the chat. Water's back. I don't know what that means. Stell is saying, would our ancestors run? No, they would be ashamed. They give their ultimate sacrifice, wouldn't you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What am I going to sacrifice? For what? Do what? What, Stell? Right? Listen, I can get my flag. And shout freedom and shout never, right? Never! I can go to the next Tommy Robinson protest and pick a fight with someone and get arrested. My family, my kids. What's going to happen to my kids if I'm not here? Oh, you're shameful. You're shameful. Oh, you don't understand what you're up against. Listen, and if you're a Gen Zer, you've got all this to blame. If you're a Gen Z, if you're a Gen Xer, right? If you're a Gen X, you let this happen, right? Gen X let this happen. Maybe not you, but if you are Generation X, who was in charge when all this bad stuff was happening? It was you guys. It was you guys who were Generation X. You guys were in charge. You guys were thinking everything is awesome. Everybody wants a good life. And now you sow the seeds and you reap the whirlwind. David is saying something uses a frequency weapon down 40 cartel drones in El Paso. Maybe they're bringing Lisa Jane is saying, Sean, I'm Gen X. I want nothing but love and peace. Yes, and that's what Gen Xers want. That is exactly what Gen Xers want. They all want love and peace. Now, what happened is, and look, this is nothing negative to anyone. This is just human evolution, right? This is just cyclical human evolution. I know that doesn't make sense, but you know what? It makes sense today, all right? This is development. This is cyclical human development, right? So this is what happens. We'll start with the war generation, right? The war generation, they came back after defeating the Germans. They come back and they are, they're strong. And they're like, Jesus, right? Can't believe what we did. Yeah. I've got you, bro. And they're like, no, I've got you, bro. And he's like, yeah, I love you, bro. And he's like, yeah, I love you too, bro. Let's build this empire, And they're a strong generation. So they build strong institutions. They have a strong country. They have a strong economy. They all work. They all do things for the greater good. They all do things for each other, right? Strong. Their children, and then they have children, right? Their children grow up learning from their parents who are strong, and they grow up to be the boomers, right? And they're the boomers, and they've got everything. The boomers have got everything. They've got all the opportunity because their parents gave it them. They've got all the, they've got all the free markets, the financial systems, cheap credit, cheap, everything. They have it good. They have it good. Cheap housing. They're the boomers. So the boomers then give birth to Gen Xers, right? Gen Xers grow up with their parents. Now, because the boomers' parents, the war generation, were strong and protected their children, they never knew struggle. They never knew hardship. All they knew is everything is awesome. So they don't teach their children of woes. Sorry, the boomers don't teach their children of woes because the boomers have never seen adversity. The boomers have never had to go and fight the Germans. The boomers have had everything given to them. So the Gen Xers, when they grow up, they just grow up, exactly like Lisa Jane's saying. And Sean, I want nothing but peace and love and peace, which is exactly what Gen Xers do. They want love and peace. Now, when the Gen Xers grow up, they give kids to the millennials, and the millennials are like this thing in between where they don't really they have Lord of the Rings, and that's about it. Then the millennials grow up into a world that's like already fallen. It's on its way down, which puts you into a crisis phase, into a crisis cycle, crisis phase, which we're in now. And then our Gen Z or Gen Alphas, they're going to be the next war generation. And the cycle continues. Sky Queen is saying that 96% of wealth is first generational. There is no inheritance. Read Aaron Rand. I don't think that's right. I think no, not a chance. Not a chance. I would say most wealth is generational. It's very hard to create first generational. What are we talking about here? So first generational wealth would be where I start a company. I don't know, Sky Queen Logistics or whatever, and I make millions of, that's first generational wealth. I then hand that money or that company or that wealth or whatever to my children. That, that's generational wealth. Cindy Archer is saying, I think people blame older people because they want to get rid of them without guilt, which is sick. Well, you have to blame older people for what's going on. You can't blame toddlers, can you? You can't blame toddlers for what's going on. You have to, it's literally, it is the older people. Yeah, guys, listen. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is generationally, right? Yes, of course. There's exceptions to every rule. Not every boomer boomed, right? Not every boomer. Literally, not everybody who was born of parents who fought in the Second World War. Not every boomer had a business and made millions of dollars. Not every boomer. There were boomers who were poor. There were boomers who were penniless. There were generationally, that's how it works. Stelly's saying, go back to East Camp and tell the blokes to run. Lol. I don't know what that means. Listen, guys, when I'm doing these prepping 101, right, I'm going to have to keep saying this because I know people are like, maybe you've missed another one of my, maybe you've missed some of my videos, right? So I always say to avoid violence. Like, why are you going to get yourself into a violent situation? You know, and some people on this chat are absolutely wild. You know, some people are wild on this chat, like, go back to East Camp. Where was East Camp? I was in New Normandy Barracks, not East Camp. I don't know where that was. Anyway, there's a lot of people on the chat saying, oh, Sean, you're telling people to run. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I'm telling people to run. If you've ever seen a mob of like, now I've seen this a couple of times. Both times has been in the Middle East. If you've ever seen a mob of men, Middle Eastern men, because that's where I'm going from, and this could be any group of men. If you've ever seen a mob of men that are just wild like a pack of animals, right? You're not fighting that. You're not fighting that. All you're doing is saying goodbye to your family. You're not even going to slow them down. You will not slow them down. So, you know, people need to understand, all right, what I've been talking about, right? Hibernate, relocate, evacuate, right? That's what we're aiming on. We're talking about contingency planning. We're talking about prepping 101 for a civil war in the United Kingdom. And we're talking about threat identification and immediate triggers. Those immediate triggers that you need to get out as quickly as possible. And you've probably got 6 to 12 hours. If you guys remember when the riots happened, like, I think it was, was it 24? I think it was 24 when the 24 riots happened. I think it took a couple of days for that to start. And I get it, right? There might be some young, strong men on here. There might be some young, strong men who want to go fisticuffs. I'm not, you know, it's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. Slim Yin is saying the politicians have sold us out, are the big problem. What power did the simple people have in the Shire wield? Oh, I think we're going Lord of the Rings here. I don't know what powers. Oh God, yeah, right, Stell, right, okay, sorry. Yes, East Camp. Sorry. On the barracks in go on. What is it called? St. Athan Barracks. Sorry, yeah, East and West Camp. Milo is saying there will be no civil war. Be real, man. You Brits have been saying that for months now and done nothing. I would say people have been saying this for years. The problem is people are financial slaves in the United Kingdom, right? You can have a peasants' revolt when those peasants don't have anything, right? Excuse me. Sorry. It's usually three. I think it's 2. It's usually 3. No. So you can only have a peasants' revolt when the peasants don't have anything. What's happening in the United Kingdom is more and more people are being brought onto state support. So what they're doing is, with that state support, if they're giving people the bare minimum for to survive. Nobody's thriving in the United Kingdom. Honestly, nobody's thriving in the United Kingdom. But people have just the right amount so they don't die. They don't have too much, so they start thinking. And they don't have nothing, so they're desperate, right? So it's such a weird... We're in such a weird way. We are in such a weird way, guys. A weird place. Max is saying, mobs better watch out. The earth may give away below them. Are we talking Lord of the Rings here, guys? I think we've all gone Lord of the Rings. Right, let me jump down. Oh, hang on. At which point the roads will be packed, will be peak congestion. I'm getting sick of Sean's stupid advice. Right. And what are you on about? This will not be peak congestion. Right, Slim. I'm actually saying get out early. Right. Right, okay. If we go through this algorithm, right, okay? Hibernate, relocate, evacuate, okay? What I'm saying now is there's going to be certain immediate triggers, right, that will mean that you don't want to hibernate. You need to get out as quickly as possible. So in those first couple of hours, and if anybody thinks any different to this, they're wrong. In those first couple of hours, that's your best chance to get out of the city. Just imagine Birmingham, right? Okay, let me give you the scenario. Birmingham city centre, there's a mass incident, a mass vile incident involving children, all right? And it happens at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right? 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 6. You're going to be able to get out of the city because not everybody will know what's happened. It will take time for that, for those people to mobilize, to finish work, to get home, to get on the streets. You've got a couple of hours. So what I'm actually saying is, you're saying at which point the roads will be peak congestion. I'm saying no. You will not be able to get out after these things have started. So you may have 3 days of food and water in your house. If you're not going to be able to get out after 3-4 days, you're going to be, you're going to be in your own coffin. So what I'm saying is there may be like immediate triggers where you have to get out straight away. Did I clarify that, guys? Slim, did I clarify that for you, mate? Because I don't want Slim to be misunderstanding what I'm saying, or anybody for that matter. Yes, Birmingham, there will be Afro blocking the motorway, both north and south. Not initially, guys. Not initially. It's going to take time for this to happen. Trust me or don't, all right? Trust me or don't. It's totally up to you. Look at emergency situations all over the world. People who move quickly early are normally the ones who survive, right? So yes, maybe there will be roadblocks in and around Birmingham. It's not going to happen straight away. It's not going to happen straight away. It's going to take time. And what I'm saying is, that's your time to leave. Because if you leave it, the longer you leave it, the harder it is to get out, right? Look what happened in Iran. Look what's just happened in Iran. The United States issued travel notifications. Any US citizens in Iran, get out. Any US citizens in Iran, get out as quickly as they can. Any US citizens, get out of Iran as quickly as you can. Right. And now the travel warning is, right, if you're in Iran, you need to get out, but do not rely on the United States. Try and head to Armenia or try and head to Turkey. So if you could have got out of Iran early, good. If you left it, bad, because you're still in Iran now, and it's looking like the whole candy shop's coming down. It's all gone wrong. He's saying the UK is going to be a tech hub, not enough room for people and what's coming on this island. Do you know what? I couldn't quite believe this when I saw it. Excuse me. I couldn't quite believe this when I saw it. So the amount of energy that these tech hubs take is unbelievable. They take a lot of energy. And here in the United Kingdom, we get absolutely fleeced for our energy. So yes, you're absolutely right. And this was like a massive question mark to me. So one of two things are happening. Either these people who are building tech hubs in the United Kingdom are stupid, or they know something that we don't. And what I'm talking about there is the cost of energy to run these tech hubs is huge. It's huge. And here in the United Kingdom, they have to pay a lot for their energy. So normally you would go somewhere that has cheap energy, right? Like if you want to manufacture goods, you go where you can get cheap manufacturing. If you want to have a tech center that is heavily reliant on electricity, you go to wherever the electricity is cheap. So yeah, you're right, but I just don't understand it. I don't understand why anyone would invest in the United Kingdom as a tech hub when the price of energy is so high. We're surrounded by water. They're ruining Cornwall, mining lithium. Oh, hang on. David King is saying, your satanic ruling class hate you. Get over it. I think people need to get over it, right? We're all fixated on, the Epstein files and all the rest of it. And I'm just like, guys, you just need to accept it. That's it. This sort of stuff's wild. It is. The stuff that the Epstein files opened up is absolutely insane. You need a big drum and cyme flutes. They need a militia and paramilitary in Cleethorpes, loyal, you can call it. Yeah, look, so... Look, right, I did try and talk about this earlier. So for those of you guys who are saying that, Raven is all about running and, I've wrote some very strongly worded letters. No, I've identified Cleethorpes, right? If civil war comes to the United Kingdom, I've identified Cleethorpes as a potential stronghold. So all you guys, all you tough guys, well, all the tough guys are going and, they're having one-on-one battles with thousands of men. Raven's going to be building a civilization in Cleethorpes. We're going to be building our own communities. We're going to be building our own infrastructure. We're going to have our own laws, our own legislations. We're going to have the first utopian civilization for Cleethorpes. And all the uncivilized who just want to fight, you guys don't get to come in. You guys don't get to come in. You guys get to stay outside. Paul J is saying the old saying, bury the hatchet, is a Native American ritual. They would share an axe and pipe and hold it together and bury it. Okay. Okay. Well, listen, if anybody's got any axes or pipes they want to bury, Paul J is your man. Paul J is your man. Eyeball Paul, you are absolutely right. And with that one sentence, Eyeball Paul has just encompassed exactly what this live stream has been about. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking about prepping. I've been talking about civil war in the United Kingdom and threat identification. And everybody needs to identify immediate triggers. That's what I've been talking about. I hope I've communicated that well with you guys. So your immediate triggers are things that if they happen, You need to get out of those big cities as quickly as possible. Now, I think Slim was saying, you know, that if you leave early, it will be impossible. And I'm saying that historically, that's just not the case. If you leave early on, you have a better chance, you know, of getting out of those cities. And what I'm saying is, if these immediate triggers happen, and I'm mass incident, basically, you know, you've got your first one, a mass incident. Your second, and that could be anything, you know, that mass incident could be anything. You've got your second one, which would be potentially around an immigration hotel or something related. And then you've got your third one, which would be economic destruction. If and when these things happen, and they happen quick, you may not want to hibernate. You may just want to get out of those cities as quickly as possible. And what I'm saying is, and this advice is right, get out quick. And that's the advice, guys. Okay. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, right. I am going to close this down now, but I'm going to be back on very soon, and I'm going to be doing another live stream. I'm going to be talking about we're going to be talking about alien disclosure. Yep, we are. Few of you guys have mentioned it in the live stream when I was talking. There's a lot of stuff happening at the moment about this alien disclosure. I don't mean the movie. I mean actually real stuff. It just seems like everybody's come to the conclusion now that there is going to be a mass, you know, UAP disclosure at some in, I think they're saying January the 8th. Is it January the 8th? Anyway, I'm going to be talking about that later. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down. Right, Slim. Right, okay. Right, okay. Right, Slim, right, okay. Slim's saying, yes, wait for the mass event, then block the roads with all the other panicking TWATS. Right, okay. Right, how many times do I need to say this, right? If there is a mass event, not everybody's going to leave straight away. People, your people with normalcy complacency will stay around. They will stay in the big cities because they won't know what's coming. What I'm saying is, if people can get out quickly, that's what you should do, right? That is literally what you should do. There's not going to, you know, and it's better getting out quick than not. When the Ukraine war happened, the people that had already left, guess what? They were gone. Then when the Ukraine war happened and everybody realized, then everybody started to go. That's when people were stuck. Anyway, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down. I'll be back on shortly, maybe less than half an hour, I reckon. We're going to talk about alien disclosure. Anyway, guys, I will catch you guys later.